Welcome to the Not Old Better Show. I'm your host, Paul Vogelsang. This is part 2 of my essay to my parents while I'm still here in California. This is the segment that I had mentioned in our part 1. This is a tough episode to record, and it's a tough subject to discuss. I've titled it, I Had to Put My Parents' Sweet Little Dog Down. So my parents found out very recently that their sweet little dog, Bailey, had been urinating on a couple spots of an expensive Persian rug. The rug sits atop a new hardwood floor in their home, and the spots were directly adjacent to a very nice, beautiful wooden loboid cabinet. As happens, the pee, which had been accumulating for some time and was really strong in odor, but didn't seem to be to my parents, and so this pee had seeped under the lowboy wooden cabinet and through the rug, soiling the hardwood floor, staining it, and creating black mold along the flooring seams all the way through to the subfloor, apparently. It was a terrible mess, and my parents were understandably angry. Before my mom's recent knee replacement surgery, she provided Bailey walks, regular potty time outside, playing, running and jumping, and since I'd arrived, I'd begun that process. But Bailey had been peeing on this part of the rug for months, apparently. The three of us, my parents and I, had discussed options over the past couple of days, and I offered to take the dog home with me to Virginia when I leave. Bailey would get along great with our two dogs, who you've met recently in the Celebrate Your Pet Day video, which is still up at YouTube and on the Not Old Better site, and I have the time and money to help deal with this problem. My parents said, "Oh, but dogs cost so much money, and 3 dogs are just so much more expensive than 2, and Bailey will not make the trip." My parents live in California, I live in Virginia. Bailey is a dog my mom received from a friend via her will upon this friend's death, and we think Bailey's about 10 to 12 years old. At one point, 2 nights ago, my parents said they would get Bailey checked at the vet for urinary problems before deciding anything. The next morning, my mom, in tears, asked me to take Bailey, right then, to the vet to euthanize the dog. My mom explained that they asked a couple people if they were interested in taking her, but they weren't. The friend saying the pound would most likely euthanize a dog with urinary problems like this. And my mom is so overwhelmed with her own convalescence and care needs that Bailey wouldn't and couldn't be trained, given my mom's limited ambulatory ability. Hearing this, I then phoned a longtime area friend about the training component. According to this friend, dogs, of course, can be trained not to soil indoors, but the reinforcement after the trainer leaves is as important as the training. And in conversation with my mom, she just couldn't conduct that post-trainer training herself, and Bailey was not going to learn without that reinforcement. And if there were the urinary issues, then she said she didn't have much hope that Bailey would ever get better or stop the behavior. And so they decided that they would put him to sleep. So Bailey, about 10 to 12 years old with some possible health problems, was very sweet and generally well behaved, and my mom loved Bailey, giving him a great home and much joy for the years following the death of her friend. I felt that I couldn't be critical, and it was her decision. It was my parents' decision. I must respect that choice. These are the hard choices that we make as parents age, and I felt my choices are basically threefold. I could express anger, I could bury that anger, or I could accept that I can't control anyone but myself, and that those actions are not my actions, and therefore there's no benefit to me being in any way angry. Some people have a lifetime of their parents disregarding their preferences and then being told not to express any negative emotions about it. But this was, I suppose, new territory for me and new territory for our family. I guess what's probably most unsettling is that this feels like it may undermine maybe the narrative of our family in some ways. It makes me kind of question how close I suppose we really are. If your parents respect you as a fellow adult, then maybe the process would have been slightly different. It would have been, 3-party instead of just the two, or maybe just even my mom, who I know is dealing with her own convalescence. And perhaps Bailey is ill and has these urinary tract infections. Whatever it is, I've been confronted with the fact that my parents are in fact fallible beings and that I disagree with them on a significant matter. This is really the first time this has happened in a big way, and it's compounded by my parents' age and frailty, and I'm inclined just to keep these feelings to myself. I know that doesn't sound very helpful, but no matter what else I feel or I'm being told by anyone else, if you boil it away, it's those 3 choices. I could be angry, I can bury the anger, or I can just let it go. That's what you're left with. I had to choose probably the most difficult. I chose the latter. I'm just going to decide to let this go. While there at the vet, I was upset. I was bawling. My mom was in the car because of her knee surgery. She couldn't even get out of the car, and so it was left to me to take Bailey inside. And in between the sobs, I spoke to the veterinarian, who said some really interesting things to me. She said she gets angry with people who aren't willing to go to great lengths to properly care for their animals. Yet she's also very clear that most animals are kept alive too long because pet owners have difficulty judging the appropriate time to euthanize because they're too attached and they fail to understand what the pet is experiencing. Now that I've had a day or two to reflect, consider the vet's advice, reconsider my mom, I'm certainly, more open to this possibility that I have to think about it maybe in those terms that maybe some of these pets are kept alive too long, and maybe their own condition is just so hard on them. Maybe that's not being cold-hearted and lifestyle-driven as it appears to be. I'll post this, but the vet sent a lovely handwritten note and card expressing her sensitivity to this time and the situation. It's a beautiful gesture, and as I say, I'll post it, and you can read this for yourself. I wonder this, though. Isn't it presumptuous to assume that I even know all there is to know about Bailey's situation? I live in Virginia. I pop in and out. I'm here sporadically. And when I'm here, I'm swamped with errands for my parents, upkeep on their house, cooking, meds, everything. That fog produces a vagueness, after all. So again, I see this in 2 ways. Maybe I am being presumptuous, assuming that I know best when in fact I may not know all the facts, so let it go. or maybe my parents, who are not abusers, and again, my anger gets us nowhere, so it falls to this last issue, and that is, let it go. My advice at this point, trust your parents. If this is something that is going on in your family, trust your parents. Let it go. Even if you find that difficult, let it go anyway. No good can come from letting this poison a good, hopefully, relationship with your parents. Either way, the outcome is the same. Maybe I'll donate some money to the ASPCA or a local animal rescue in honor of Bailey and my parents. Thanks for listening, and please reach out and comment. I love to hear your feedback and your sense as to what's best in these situations.